Welcome, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, Your Excellency, the Minister of Tourism for the Republic of Egypt. Welcome to Talks at Google. Dr. Rania is the youngest minister in Egypt ever, and she is responsible for tourism, a very vibrant sector in Egypt. Of course, she has had a trailblaze of a career, PhD at 25 years old from University of Maryland in the US, and worked at the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and returned to Egypt to help with the economy as a sub-governor of the Central Bank of Egypt. Very important jobs, and then returned back to the IMF. On this trail, she was named the most out of the 50 top most influential women in the Egyptian economy, and is also a young global leader, and was appointed Minister of Tourism in January 2018, right? So welcome, Dr. Rania.
Thank you very much, Salim, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for taking the time to come and listen to me. It's very honorable to be here at Google. Of course, all of us use your search engines more than one time a day, and it's wonderful to be in a hub that promotes innovation, that promotes ways or finds tools to actually cope with the fourth industrial revolution.
Thank you for making the time. I know you have a very busy schedule, and really we want to take this opportunity to know more about Dr. Rania, your personal journey. You've had an accelerated career, and the question is, where is it, at what time really you felt that there was a turning point, there was this inflection point, I would say?
Okay, well, first, I'm Rania Al-Mashat. I'm the eldest daughter in a family where I have two siblings, two younger brothers, and a very proud Egyptian, someone who does not really see gender differences. I think that was part of the upbringing.
Would like to talk about that.
Yes, yes, and my journey is one that started when I was 7 years old. I come from a family where my father is a political scientist, and growing up, the house was full of politicians and public figures at a very young age. So I would see all my father's friends at home having dinner. And then the following day, they would either be on the radio or in the newspaper or on TV. So I was 7 years old, and so I see them at home having fun and having dessert and salad and stuff and discussions, and then the next day they're all over the news and stuff. And the only thing that was common between all these people was that they all had PhDs.
Okay.
So at the age of 7, they would ask me, "What do you want when you grow up? What do you want to be?" And I said, "Doctora." In what field? Doesn't matter. Just, the concept that through education you are able to have influence, through being good at a subject matter, you are able to be credible. I think this was really what shaped my interest from a very young age. So really, at the age of 7, they would ask me, "What do you want growing up?" And I would say, "A PhD, because I want to be influential." And rightly so, growing up, I was always good at school. Came college time, I went to the American University in Cairo.
Yes.
There's a funny story around that, but I don't know how much time we have. Because when you ask about we have time, okay, you ask about the inflection points, there are so many.
Always time for funny stories.
Yeah, there is. My life, even though it's, it's good positions, successful posts, but there are anecdotes which leave me believing, and this I always say, we are a mass of energy. And so whatever you think of, you can really achieve. And the universe conspires for you, not against you.
All right.
And when I was around, I was here actually in the UAE around high school time. I was actually in Al Ain. My father was teaching at Al Ain University.
All right.
Dubai was very nascent at the time, and there was only the Ghurair Center and so forth. But I did a foreign certificate in Al Ain. And in Egypt at the time, you can actually skip 2 years of high school and go to college if you had a foreign certificate. So I finished 10th grade and was applying to go to university in Egypt. You know, you're going from high school to university, you're buying clothes, you're so excited, you're going to be able to drive, maybe to go to college, you have classes, it's not a classroom like in high school. And then 2 weeks before college starts, the Minister of Education, with one signature, takes out a decree that says you have to have 3 years of high school.
Oh my God.
So like my whole concept and dream of going to university just got shattered. And but then, and that's when I tell you the universe conspires for you. We came back to UAE. I was very upset. Half of my hair fell off. Very, very depressed. So my mom told my dad, you have to go and help Rania. Go to Egypt and find something. He's like, go do what? She said, I don't know. She's upset, you have to do something. So my poor dad leaves UAE, goes on a trip to Cairo, asks in schools, files a lawsuit with other parents because they cannot do this 2 weeks before school starts or university starts. And then he met one of his old friends and he told him, Minam, why are you so upset? Just go to the AUC. They have a system which is different than
American University of Cairo.
Yeah, American. It's a system other than the government universities. So my dad went, and they told him, yes, of course she can apply. But the thing is, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., she has to be in Ewart Hall to do her aptitude test and English test. And I was in UAE.
Yes.
So my dad calls, can you get on a flight tonight to be at AUC 8 a.m. because this is like a test for all applicants. So I rightly do take a flight. And there's another funny story about it. On the way from Al Ain to Dubai to take the flight, Air France, the tire of the car bursts with two of my father's friends. And we had to take a taxi anyway. And they called my name. I just made it on the flight. I arrive in Cairo 6:30 a.m. on that Air France flight. And I go take the English test and the aptitude test. And rightly so, I get into university at the American University in Cairo. This was in 1991. And at that time, in 1991, since we're here, talking about digitalization and Google and all that, computers were very new. At that time, there was a floppy disk.
Yes.
The 5.5 floppy disk. And in 1991, every parent wanted their kids to be a computer scientist.
Right.
And AUC at the time did not have engineering for hardware, but there was programming, software. So my parents kept on telling me, you have to be a computer scientist. You have to be go into computer. I was like, oh. So anyway, I do my advising. I take 106. I declare computer. I spent 2 years as a computer science major, of course, acing all my classes, having the highest GPA. But sitting with myself, I would say I would never do anything related to computer unless I had an assignment from a professor. So if I graduate, how am I supposed to show my true self? How am I supposed to show my skills if it's only fulfilling an assignment? So anyway, I told my professors, I'm leaving computer science. Of course, everyone was shedding a tear. How come? You're the number one, da 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 da. Then my parents were like, go to business administration. That's the highest second GPA in the school. So I declared business administration for 1 semester, which I also hated because it was all about, 14 multiple choice questions, and I always aced that as well. So then my late father's friend, very close to us, he told me, Rania, economics is a science. It's a discipline that has a history. Why don't you declare economics? So at AUC, I spent 2 years computer science major, 1 semester business administration major, and then 1.5 years as an economics major.
All right.
I graduated from AUC in June 1995. I was on a plane to the US on July 4th, 1995. Another funny story. So entering university, I told you the story. Now, during my graduating senior year, I told my mom and dad one day, I'm going to go and do my GRE tests. So they said, why? I said, because I'm going to graduate and I'm going to go and do my PhD. And they said, my mom looked at me and said, but, you know, I don't want you to travel and do your PhD. You work here a little bit, you get married, and then you go and do your PhD. So then I went to my father and told him, I want to travel, I want to go and do my GRE because I want to travel and do my PhD. And he said, well, did you ask your mom? I'm like, guys, I told you this since I was 7. I was very clear with what I wanted. So anyway, I got refused from both parents, no traveling. So then I applied to different, of course, jobs. At that time, in Cairo, the best job for any AUC graduate was P&G. That was the #1 job because it was the only multinational.
Procter & Gamble.
Procter & Gamble. Yeah. So I got, you know, an offer from Procter & Gamble. I got an offer to at the Social Research Center at the American University. I got a scholarship to do my master's at American University. It's called the Sasakawa Scholarship. And then, in December of 1994, my father was asked by the Egyptian government to be the cultural attaché for Egypt in Washington, D.C.
All right.
So he traveled to the United States in January 1995. He came, attended my graduation in June 1995, and then the whole family was on a plane to the US in July 1995, and I started my PhD in August.
So that's the universe conspiring.
That's the universe conspiring for you.
For you.
So you set your goals.
Wonderful.
You believe in what you want. You close your eyes and you see that dream.
Yeah.
And trust me, it will happen.
That's amazing. So you discovered economics late, a little bit late in your university degrees, and then you went on to have a PhD, a doctor in economics.
Yes.
In Maryland University, which is one of the most famous universities for economics, right?
Yes.
And
economics is and what was so fascinating and why I wanted to do a PhD in economics is at that time economic development and international trade were very, very big. This was at the beginning of the GATS and the WTO and you know, countries signing on trade agreements and free trade zones and all that sort of stuff. And the idea of country taking policies to better the lives of its citizens, openness, trade, flow of products. These were all very fascinating topics.
Yeah.
So this idea of a Laffer curve and what is how do people become better off and what should government do? All of these were very inspiring concepts to me. So after I finished that 1.5 years as an undergraduate, I said, okay, the PhD that I want is a PhD in economics.
Fantastic. So you sort of experimented and didn't work.
Yes.
You changed quickly. Something that we promote a lot in entrepreneurship. You know, if you want to change quickly, or if you want to fail quickly, and then move on. And then you went on because you were hired by the IMF. You had a trailblazing career, and then all of a sudden somebody said, you know, the home country calls you back, right?
Yes.
And you were extremely successful at the IMF because you went around the world advising countries in Africa and Asia. I actually read Daughters of the Nile, the chapter that you wrote. I advise everyone to read it. And then when they called you back home, everybody was worried, right?
Yes.
And I recall this from the article that you're too young, and you're a woman. What are you going to go back and do there, right? In a way. And can you expand a little bit on this and talk about maybe share with the audience the 4 C's that
Yes,
that you used?
just something about the U.S. and education and IMF. To me, education was always the means to come back and serve my country at some point. The IMF was also, while I was doing my PhD, I did 2 internships. One at the IMF and one at the World Bank. And even though they're just across each other in Washington, D.C., the 2 institutions are very different. One looks at financial stability in the world. One looks at more different projects and developmental projects. And after doing that internship at the IMF, I said the only thing that would keep me in the US would be if I get a job at the IMF. To me, it was a place where you learn how to create comprehensive policy frameworks, how you sit down with authorities in countries, whether it's finance, central bank, trade and industry, different ministers, and you have to sit, convince them with certain ways, negotiate, and explain how you better the lives of people. So to me, it was a very important institution that would again serve an end in my head, but I didn't know when that end would come. I mean, how I would go back, in what form. And then in 2000, and in October of 2004, I was approached by at the time, the Minister of Investment in Egypt, and he said, Rania, you know, why don't you come back to the central bank? And I said, you know, yeah, I mean, when I was doing my PhD in Maryland, most of my friends from Latin America, they would either go back to the Ministry of Finance or to the central bank. But in Egypt, the system didn't allow. You had to be a public servant. You had to start from right after graduation. So for the first time in Egypt's government history, in 2004, 2005, people from abroad or from outside the system were allowed to take key positions. So I was very excited. I was given sub-governor for monetary policy. My PhD is on monetary policy and public debt management. And my friends, as you mentioned, at the IMF were very worried. They're like, Rania, we're worried you're going back, you're a woman, this and that. And I said, this concept of woman is something that I don't think about too much. Maybe seniority is more important given our history. And then comes the 4 C's that you mentioned. And these are principles of success that I believe in very much. And they are in this order: competence, connections, confidence, and charm.
All right.
And let me elaborate a little bit. You have to be competent in anything you do.
Right.
And you gain that competence from being passionate. So when I look back and I say, okay, I was going to be a computer scientist, I'll probably get a very high GPA, graduate with honors, and then be employed. But I did not have that passion to sit down and program. So you have to be competent in what you do. And competence comes by every day you're learning something new and you're adding to that discipline and you're becoming an expert in a subject matter. So that's number 1. Number 2, connections are extremely important. Extremely important. You can be competent, but without connections, you may not get to different places. You may not have networks. You may not have exposure. You may not be referred to go and speak at a conference or go and be nominated for something. And just to have connections without competence will never work also. It's not going to be a sustained path whatsoever. The third is to have confidence. And there's a very thin line between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
You're only confident if you're competent in what you are doing. But if you're not competent, your confidence becomes arrogance. And that's very easy to be discovered. And that's why the order matters. And then the last thing is to be charming. And charm is to have this intuition on how to deal with people in different circumstances. So, for example, when I was sub-governor in the central bank, I was the youngest sub-governor, and I had subordinates who were double my age. So there were at moments you had to be extremely firm,
Yes.
and there are moments where you have to crack a joke. When you're in a meeting room and you're the youngest, most competent female with many senior people, and you have to grab their attention. They have to listen to you, and there's just a way, a demeanor of how you present your ideas, how you become very firm at certain points,
Yes.
how you become more malleable and more flexible. So this is the charm is how I would describe it, is how you deal with circumstances. So these are my 4 C's, and that's what I told my friends at the IMF. These are my principles that I believe in, and I'll be applying them when I'm back home.
So this is a secret sauce, right?
Yeah. So
That-
these are
that
4
Secret
C's.
formula that help you accelerate, and then after that you actually were entrusted with the Ministry of Tourism in 2018, right? You had a lot of things in between.
Yes.
But we're really eager to hear about tourism and Egypt.
So it's very counterintuitive when you think about it. I was PhD in economics, spent 5 years at the IMF, spent 11 years at the Central Bank of
Yes.
Egypt, seen different phases of the Egyptian economy, the revolution, after the revolution, and then I went back as advisor to the IMF's chief economist. I went back to the IMF in August 2016, and then in January 2018, while I'm on mission in Jordan for monetary policy and financial stability, and this is also another funny story. So before going to Jordan, which was on January 9th, I spent New Year's in Siwa. And since I'm Minister of Tourism, I can promote Siwa. Siwa is one of the most fantastic places in the world.
Where is it?
It's in the desert.
Yes.
And if you go to the northern coast from Marsa Matruh, it's an oasis.
Right.
And again, I don't know how much time we have, but there's a place in Siwa.
Yeah.
If you make a wish, it comes true.
All right.
Okay, I guarantee it. So, so anyway, I did my New Year's Eve in Siwa, and then went to Jordan to lead this mission on monetary policy and financial stability. And from Siwa, you take salt.
Right.
It's for detoxing. So you know, I take a very nice bath on that Wednesday night. That was the 10th of January, and sleep at 9 p.m. Wake up in the morning, and I have 700 missed calls on my phone. Of course, the first thing that comes to my mind, I call my mom in the US. Are you okay? Yes. What's wrong? She's like, call your dad. I called my dad. Are you okay? This was 5 a.m. Cairo time. He says, yeah, where have you guys? I was sleeping. He's like, Rania, call this person. Egypt is looking for you. I was like, so anyway, I call this person. It's like, we want you to come to be sworn in. And I said, sworn in for what? And he says, Minister of Tourism. I said, guys, you know my career. You know, banking, central banking, international institutions, economics, finance, tourism. He said, yes, the president thinks that this sector needs to be run from an economic perspective.
Interesting.
And this sector represents 20% of Egypt's GDP.
Yes.
Globally, tourism represents 10% of global GDP. 1 in every 10 jobs globally is in tourism. 30% of exports and services comes from the tourism sector. So this
That is
was
in Egypt as well.
Globally.
Globally.
This is
Right.
globally. So the impact of this sector on a global scale is a very big one, and it's a service sector. And given everything that we're seeing today with respect to services, the way they're being changed, the way digitalization is making everyone from their home being able to provide a service, it's just a very impactful position to be in. So this was on that Thursday. They gave me that call. They changed my flight from Amman, Washington on Friday morning to Amman, Cairo on Friday morning. I was sworn in on Sunday. And 10 days later, I had to go to the US and do my settlement and ship my stuff. And I didn't even have clothes to be sworn in. It was just a nightmare. So all my life, when you say inflection points, I have like plenty of anecdotes.
That's quite an inflection point.
But I took over the sector, and when I look back at this year and 3 months or 4 months, I feel very proud to be able to impact individuals, to be able to use skills that you've learned in driving policy, in designing policy, in creating buy-in from different stakeholders. I think all of this, even though it's not your discipline, but the skills that you gain definitely equip you to be able to apply.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, an economist, doctor, and strategist background. You're a strategist, definitely. So what's your vision for tourism in Egypt? It's a large portion of the economy. Everybody here has visited Egypt, I hope, right? Yeah. Okay, so we all have, at least more than once, and it's actually a dream for every person in the world to go and see Egypt and the pyramids. So what's your vision, practically speaking?
So when I took over, I felt that the way the sector was handled traditionally was from a very piecemeal approach. So something happens and we try and go and fix it. An issue here, we try and contain it. I wanted to apply newer concepts. I wanted to change the narrative on the sector. Something very significant about this.
In what way you say change the narrative?
Change the narrative. I wanted to show that we are applying modern thinking when we think of such an important and vital sector for the country. So I put together the E-Trip. E-Trip is short for Egypt Tourism Reform Program.
Right.
And it's a structural reform program that addresses different pillars required to put this sector on a sustainable path. So legislative reform, institutional reform, new ways of promoting and marketing the country, investment and infrastructure, and international trends. So for example, having the Sustainable Development Goals as the heart of what we apply, having an overarching objective, which is not counting number of tourists, but making sure that every Egyptian household has at least one person working in tourism. Wow. That is a goal that I believe we can achieve, and it's a way to mobilize everyone around this sector. Our promotion campaign, for example, just to give an idea, has 3 key elements. The first one is, when you talk about the mentioning the narrative, is P2P, people to people. We want to show Egyptian people are people of pride, peace, positivity, progress, productivity. It's the power of people above politics. And the idea is, when you're talking about travelers today, and all of us travel, and we like to engage with communities. So it's people and places. And we are very blessed to have so many destinations in our country. And every destination has its food, its handicrafts, its clothes, the traditions. So we want to showcase the people in different places. We also want to showcase contemporary Egyptians. The perception that people have sometimes, women maybe staying at home, not educated, etc. We have women who are in sports. We have women who are in painting, in arts, in music. We have very skilled actors and actresses and so on. So it's showing the contemporary face of Egypt. So that's the P2P campaign. Then we have the Grand Egyptian Museum, the GEM. It's going to open in the 4th quarter of 2020. And
in 60 seconds, what is the Grand Museum?
The Grand Egyptian Museum is a museum, a $1 billion museum. It's on the plateau of Giza.
Yes.
And it is going to be the only museum in the world dedicated to one civilization.
Mm-hmm.
So all the pieces in the museum are from pharaonic Egypt, and it will have the full collection of Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun is the most famous pharaoh globally.
Yes.
And 5,000 pieces of his collection are in the museum. And even though you have Egyptian artifacts in different places in the world,
Yes.
this is the only museum that has the pyramids as its backdrop. So you can take a selfie with Tutankhamun and the pyramids at the same time. So very tough to beat.
We can do that.
Very, very tough to beat. The other thing that this museum holds, and when it's just so breathtaking, you just pass by it. It has all these ancient monuments inside, but the facade is very contemporary. And this is the story we want to tell. When we say the narrative,
Fantastic.
you have the history, but also you have the contemporary face of the country.
And it's meant to open in 2020?
The fourth quarter of 2020.
Great date.
Yes.
So this is fantastic. But practically speaking, and real life is that we have challenges. And when it comes to Egypt and tourism, everyone thinks, the instability, the security, etc. These are challenges. How do you deal with this? How do you address issues like that?
Yes, we have been through different episodes, and I think lately the government has invested so much in the infrastructure related to security, and our numbers are back up, and people have been voting with their feet.
Right.
And also internationally, for the steps that the government has taken with respect to security, with respect to the reform program, with respect to changing this narrative, we have been awarded several prizes lately. So from the World Tourism and Travel Council, Egypt received the Champion Award for Resilience in Tourism, particularly for the topic you mentioned.
Yes.
Again, the idea that people come, have a good time, write about this, reflect it, encourages others to come as well. So the government mindfully puts all its resources to ensure that everyone has a safe and secure trip.
Fantastic. So, we were at the World Economic Forum in Jordan, and I was really looking forward to your session, which was entitled Tech in Tourism. Okay, and we know a little bit about tech, so really we want to hear your point of view on how tech can transform, accelerate tourism, shape the tourism industry in a country as important as Egypt.
So in our reform program, the final pillar is called international trends. Right. And in there are three areas: green tourism, women empowerment, and digitalization. And I remember the days when I would be traveling in the US and we would have to go to AAA to get the maps and open up the map and use our PIN and then have these markers and so forth. Today you want to travel on your phone, you choose the location, you choose the restaurant, you have a translation of this, you have a translation. So really, and that's why I started by saying tourism is a services sector. And everything that is the ease by which automation has helped services be delivered to customers in an easy and more accessible way means that if you are not joining this fourth industrial revolution, as it's called, or this innovative move when it comes to an important sector such as tourism, you're going to be left out. So everyone makes their decisions: where to eat, where to travel, how to travel, who to meet, who's in a certain place, all through the devices that companies like yourself very skillfully make available and make accessible to all of us as customers. Yeah. So the other thing is when I say
to be useful, as you say.
So when I say that our overarching objective is to have at least one individual in every household in Egypt working in this sector, this can be possible by people contributing one way or another by providing services in an automated, in a digital way. So this is a very important scope where you ease the experience of a visitor, and at the same time you are able to get many and more people involved in providing that service in different ways.
Fantastic. We will watch this space very carefully and hope to learn together on how this is going to transform the tourism industry in Egypt. There are a lot of questions, and we really need to I have a question to ask, and everybody's, what's your favorite site in Egypt?
Well, to be politically correct, every place in Egypt is.
We know about Siwa.
Yeah.
We just discovered Siwa.
Yeah. Siwa is very special because I don't know if people know about this, but Alexander the Great, in one of his expeditions, passed by Siwa. And he asked the priests in the temple there, it's called the Temple of the Oracle, I want you to go and ask if I'm the son of Amun.
Yes.
So the priests go into the temple, and there's a sacred chamber there, and they go, and of course they talk to the god Amun, and they come out with the verdict, which is, yes, of course you're the son of Amun. So Alexander the Great discovered that he was the son of Amun in Siwa. No, every place in Egypt is extremely special. I don't say this because I'm the minister. But even the seas, I mean, you have the Mediterranean, you have the Red Sea, and in the Red Sea you have different places. Sharm el-Sheikh, Hurghada, Marsa Alam, Sahla Hashish. It just keeps going on and on and on. Dahab. If you are a backpacker, you can have fun. If you want to be on a cruise, you can have fun. If you want to spend a lot of money, you can have fun. If you're on a budget, you can have fun. So it's you have the history, you have the beach, you have the, many areas are known for only one type of product. In Egypt, you can combine different things. The Grand Egyptian Museum is going to have Sphinx Airport 30 minutes away from it. So you can see the museum and then go to Sharm el-Sheikh for, continue your leisure and sun and beach holiday. So I think that everyone in the world, being a kid, is fascinated by the pyramids and wants to come and take a picture with a monument. There's so much that can happen, and the first people to use Instagram were the pharaohs. Every wall.
How is that?
They have so many stories. They've posted all their stories already. So it's the more you learn and the more you see. And of course, now that I'm a minister, I get to spend more times at temples. The genius behind this civilization is a testament not just to the Egyptians but to all of humanity.
Yeah.
The genius of humanity is really something that needs to be celebrated, and you can celebrate it in Egypt anywhere.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Rania.
Thanks.
We open the floor for questions. Please state your name and your sort of what you do at Google. I had the Pierre. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Pierre. I'm part of the club team.
Wait.
All right. So
this is the mic?
No,
This is the mic.
this is the mic.
Hello, my name is Pierre. So, as part of your past, you joined networks like Young Global Leaders. How has this type of network and focus groups helped you in your 4Cs? And now, do you still feel that if you have not joined, would you have had the same trajectory?
Yeah. No, thank you for that question. Of course, Young Global Leaders, this is with the World Economic Forum. This is a fascinating network. And, no one can do it on their own. To succeed, you need the people around you to celebrate with you, to compete with you, to help you grow. Networks like this provide you with a very robust support system. If I have personal problems, I call. If I am in a country, in a city, and I want to reach out and have dinner with a friend, I call. If there's a conference I want to attend and I can't get in, that's the connection that will get you in. So these networks are extremely, extremely, extremely important. I remember I did a leadership course at Harvard with my YGL group. And it's a very interesting concept. There, they split us up into LDGs. LDGs are leadership development groups. And they put 5 people from the network together. And we signed confidentiality agreements because it's really like a psychological group. We basically pour out all our problems and emotions and so forth. So you have the CEO of this company and everybody's really successful. And at the end of the day, you discover that everyone is very vulnerable. Everyone has a weak point. So as much strength as you need to succeed and go forward and so forth, it's normal to have pitfalls. It's normal to feel vulnerable. It's normal to need support from different groups. So I mean, at the end of the day, human interactions are what last. Your title is going to go away. You might lose a job today, stay for a while before you get your next job. But really what matters at the end of the day is the human interaction. And that's why in a workplace, or whether you're a boss, you're a colleague, you're a subordinate, the human interaction is what lasts. So always invest in it. So definitely YGL groups are extremely, I mean, it's a fantastic network, has served me tremendously. There are other networks that I'm part of. And always look out to becoming a mentor, always look out to be mentored. There's a lot to be gained on both sides.
Great.
Hi.
Is over there.
Yeah. My name is Farid. I'm a customer engineer on the cloud team. To go back to your roots, I guess, to economics a little bit. Amongst the general public, there's a lot of ambiguity and lack of clarity about how our financial and especially our banking systems work, things like fractional reserves and debt creation. Do you think that is just a result of lack of curiosity, or is it by design? And the second part of the question, fast forward 50, 100 years, do you think we will have moved to a radically different system? Something
economically
better, yeah.
Yeah. You know, when you look back at the global financial crisis in 2008, why did it happen? It happened because the regulator was slower than the market when it came to innovative instruments that were made available. Mortgage-backed securities, all that sort of stuff. Given the technology, given the innovation, definitely the speed by which markets are internalizing all this innovation is much faster sometimes than the regulator, regardless of where the regulator is. The regulator could be the IMF, the regulator could be a government, the regulator could be a central bank, the regulator could be in the US, could be in the UK, could be in a developing country, doesn't matter. But the speed by which things are moving are definitely faster than the way regulation is keeping up. And so by design, there is going to be some sort of wedge. And the idea is, how do we minimize the damage from that wedge? So all the regulations that are happening today and everything that is being thought of and all the discussions and the panels is, how do you really try and close that gap between the pace of innovation and the way that you regulate that innovation? You know, a few years ago, who would have thought Brexit would happen and the implications and the fallout from that? So there is definitely a change in cryptocurrencies. So much going on, and the idea is regulators have to be open to include ideas and to include. And you take a look at the IFIs today, International Financial Institutions. For example, at the World Bank and the IMF annual meetings, there's always someone from fintech. There's always someone from the atypical institutions sitting on a panel, because the regulator needs to understand how the systems are evolving. They're evolving at a very fast pace. So absolutely, 2050, I don't know where we'll be, but I hope it's a better world.
Great. Last question, though. Okay, where is the camera? Okay, Victor.
Hi, Dr. Rania. So I'm a proud AUCN too. You reminded me of Computer Science 106. I remember that class. But you mentioned something critical about people in tourism, people being the core, right? And if you go to like Sinai, it's amazing how experience sometimes trumps education. You see hotel workers speaking Italian. In Hurghada, they speak German. And I'm wondering, you know, you're mentioning that in every family you want to have someone in the tourism sector. So how are we enabling, how are we empowering these people to be, and I'm not talking about Murshideen, right? I'm talking about the larger tourism industry. So what are we doing in that regard, and do you see a role in tech, for example, in helping that?
Yeah. You know, it's very unintuitive that Egypt, with all its riches, and I was just telling this to colleagues, I have never engaged in a lunch or dinner conversation with my parents, with my relatives, with my friends, and anyone telling anyone, get a job in tourism. Be a restaurant owner, be an Egyptologist, be a guide, go and open up a hotel. It never happens. I have never, ever, in my different circles, my friends, my cousins, nobody has this on mind. And this is very strange, right? It comes as a no-brainer. We have all these beaches and all this history. Why don't we capitalize and leverage and actually get people interested and trained and dreaming of being part of this sector? So we're doing many things. Through the reform program, when you take a look at it, in schools, we're going to start competitions on ethics of tourism. And we're going to try and see how we can bring role models, hotel owners, company owners, restaurant owners, startups who work in the sector. How can they become advocates of more people wanting to work in the sector? Because unfortunately, the perception is always you're going to be a concierge in a hotel, you're going to be a waiter. The idea that it's an export, you're going to be an exporter. You can be a businessman or a businesswoman. You can be an entrepreneur. You can create an application. You can sell that application for a lot of money and be a millionaire, So there's so much that is not internalized because it's not advertised. I think that's when I say we're changing the narrative on tourism. I think that was the key. When I do interviews and I post it on Instagram or Twitter, the feedback I get from people Egyptians living all over the world who say, we want to come and work with you, we want to be on your team, we want to participate, what can we do? I want to do this for free. It's just creating that whole interest and hype about it, and then try and channel through different partnerships how we can utilize what has been successful in other countries and apply it. We have a very vibrant youth. We have a very engaging youth, people who are extremely smart, but they want the opportunities. And I think through tourism, through tourism, there's so much you can contribute to that there can be an opportunity for everyone who's interested and who's serious.
Changing the mindset is critical with respect to the youth in Egypt for tourism. By the way, my personal favorite, it should be on everyone's bucket list, is the Nile cruise. Who has done the Nile cruise here? Why the rest haven't done it yet? You have to do it. That's it's absolutely wonderful. Dr. Rania, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And it's really been inspirational, and thank you for taking. I know you were attending conference. You came here especially to have these meetings and interaction. This is wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.